and welcome to the Live Well, Be Well, a wellness show where we explore diverse ways to boost health, well-being and connection. Breathe, thrive and feel alive. My name is Deborah from Be Well with Deborah. I'm a wellness and joy coach, and for today, your show host. On the radio station today, we have a lovely guest, Shane Murphy, who is a psychotherapist and anxiety specialist based in Youghal, whose own 22-year battle with anxiety inspired him to retrain at 40 and dedicate his life to helping others. Founder of Counselling Experts and co-creator of Youghal Talks, Shane takes a refreshing, present-focused approach to therapy, empowering clients to work from their current strengths rather than their past pain. Welcome to the show, Shane.
Thank you very much. I'm so lucky to be here. Thank you. And a lovely sunny morning like this morning. What more could you ask for?
Brilliant. It is gorgeous to wake up and have the sun coming in and having the dry weather and the blue skies. So, welcome to the show, Shane. It's a pleasure. We've been connected for a while now on social media, our first time meeting face to face, and it's lovely to have you here. So you're working as a counsellor helping people with anxiety. I'd love if you could take us back to the beginnings of your story in the terms of what got you into this line of work.
Well, I suppose getting into this line of work is probably a lot later in life, which was interesting. But I suppose my anxiety. I suppose the first thing is I didn't know I had anxiety for a long time in my life. A lot of stuff I've learned through my life is that anxiety comes most anxiety comes from our childhood. And for me, it came from being bullied in school. So I was badly bullied in secondary school, which created constantly a fear of something going wrong. And that kind of that story really embedded in my life, where I was constantly worried that things would go wrong, or that, if you're bullied in school, you don't know when the bully's going to pop up. You don't know what's going to happen with the bully, so the bully could be around the corner. So you constantly had that created that fear within me. It was quite embedded within me that I always constantly expected something to go wrong, or that someone was out there to hurt me, or someone was out there just to do damage to me. So that fear was in me. I didn't know. I thought the way I thought, the way I felt was normal. Generally, actually thought that this was the way everybody on the planet absolutely felt. I did not know that this was not me, because that's the interesting thing about therapy, about people coming to psychotherapy and stuff. Most people don't understand that that there's something not right. We're not taught that this is the way you feel, this is the way you're meant to feel, and if you don't feel like this, you need to get it sorted. And I feel that's one of the biggest problems that we have in society, is that there isn't enough education around mental health. But anyhow, so that kind of led me to, I started work in hotel and catering trade. Thought I wanted to become a chef, and then decided I didn't want to be a chef and started working as a hotel manager. So I changed jobs a lot, and one of the things I've become to recognize about why I changed jobs so often was that I had something called imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is basically where how you present yourself to the outside world and how you feel inside are two different things. So for me, the internal world was that I was constantly scared that someone would find out who I am, constantly scared that people might think that I thought I was a horrible person. So that's who I felt I was on the outside. But then to the outside world, I was confident. The things I was able to do in life was unbelievable. I look back now and go, if I believed who I was, I would have. I was fantastic as it was, but I really would have been fantastic. So I went on. I did a lot of kind of my pattern was I'd start on a job. I'd stay there for about 2 years, and I'd move on. So the concept now I'm understanding. I didn't know it at the time, but it was like, if I stayed any longer than 2 years, they'd find out who I really was.
So it was kind of like an escape.
It was an escape. That was literally constantly jumping from job to job. So I did quite well. My two most successful things was I was assistant restaurant manager in the Conrad Hilton Hotel in Dublin. Actually, that lasted for nearly 5 years, would you believe? And then after that, I went on to restaurant manager in Fade Lake House when it first opened up as a hotel. So they were probably my two big things that I'd done, and obviously I was in Luigi Ballone's, I was in Silver Springs, and lots of other places, but again, there was jumping. So I kind of, when I was about 30, I read a book by Niall Breslin, and his autobiography, and I read it and I went, oh, I got anxiety. And that was a light bulb moment for me. That was me like, oh, wow, this is how I feel. And I mean, up to that point, I had opportunities to travel to Australia and things like that. I never went because I had so much fear of something would go wrong. And I mean, when I look back in that time, like, it was constant fear. I was just constantly worried all the time. I was in flight. I wasn't in any fight. I was in constant flight. I was constantly running on stress all the time. And, you know, it just was a hard time to live, like, for me inside, you know. And then that imposter aspect of it made it even harder, because that was work as well. So it was efforting on both sides, you know. So it was actually quite a hard, I reflect back on it now and go, you know, fair dues to you for getting through it, like, because it was tough. And then after that, I moved into the retail trade. So I worked in retails, I worked in supermarkets, ran a few different supermarkets, Centras, Spars, and stuff like that. But again, still I was in the same mode, but I was started counselling at that stage, so I was starting to figure things out. I was starting to learn, okay, you know, maybe I was starting to understand more about anxiety. I was starting to understand that these thoughts and these stories that were in my head weren't real, and that these things that I assumed would go wrong won't go wrong. And I started slowing down a little bit, started coming to terms. And I remember sitting with my therapist, absolutely amazing therapist. I have no problem reaching out to him, Martin Groban. He's retired now, but an absolutely amazing therapist. And I was sitting in the practice, and we were kind of coming close to kind of finishing up therapy. And I said, do you know what? And I was kind of really at a crossroads in my life. And I said, I really don't know what to do. And he said to me, I said, do you know what? I'd like to do this. I think I'd be quite good at this. And he went, I think you'd be quite good at this too. So that's where the concept came into my head to become a therapist, you know. And as you said in the introduction, at 40 I went back to college, and I remember the first day for college, again, like, because I still had the anxiety, like, I drove around the block 10 times, okay. I eventually pulled in, and when I pulled into that car park, if there's anyone listening that was in college, this is what was happening to me. The sweat was dripping down me. It was pouring down me. So all the thoughts in my head were like, kind of, you know, what will they think of you? Will they be judged? You know, there was all these thoughts of that they would give out to me or something like that. And I suppose I felt I was older as well, like, you know, and I was like, oh, so much judgment was coming in, like, it was just going through me. And then I stepped into the room, and I looked around, and I went, oh, I'm not the oldest for the doctors. And there was a nice mix. But the only thing that actually got me over the line was that I had paid £1,000 to go to college. That was the only thing that got over the ground, was I paid €1,000. If I hadn't paid that money, I would not have walked in. And I suppose they say the rest is history, like, you know. That's how I started into the practice, 5 years in college at 40, and I mean, for me, third level education had always been a big fear factor for me, like, you know. I mean, I failed my leaving cert, you know, college, school and all that sort of stuff was all, you know, it was not so much other things coming up for me, you know. So for me to actually go to college and get a university degree was very profound. It was probably one of the most proudest moments of my life for myself, to actually get that degree. Now my degree was delayed because of COVID and all that sort of stuff, but, you know, it was the most proudest moment I had when I stood up and accepted my award. And what an amazing feeling, like, to because it was all on me. You know, there was no one else to fall back on. There was no parents to fall back on. There was nothing. I did this, and, you know, people have come to me. Lots of people have come to me and said, I'm thinking about going back to college to become a psychotherapist. And I say, do it, but it's not for the faint-hearted. You do a lot of. You have to get into your soul.
Yeah.
Because if I don't get into the inner work and sort myself out, and I'm triggered by a client, I'm doing a disservice to my client for that. So I have to do a lot of work, and I'm constantly working on myself still to this day. Constantly working on myself to this day. So that's kind of a little bit of my life, anyhow, like of kind of college and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, so I love what I do now.
Fantastic. And I can imagine, like, even listening to you there, I can see you back in the day, like, being really wound up, really anxious, then it being heightened to when you're going into your first day of school or college, and then just got that relief, you know, like, and stepping into the new, into your future. Well done. And your approach now that you use with the clients, I think is fantastic. You work in the present moment from their strengths rather than going back starting from their pain. And I think that's an excellent way to be with someone. Can you share more how that works, and also the benefits, and why you do that, why you work from their strengths rather than initially from their pain coming forward?
Well, I suppose what makes me unique as a therapist is because I have been through anxiety. I felt it, I know it, and so many of my clients come in, and when I'm talking about things, they literally go, "But I can, what I'm like." Sometimes they'd start with something and say, "Oh, you don't really get this," and then I'd actually continue on and I'd go, "But it's like this, and this is how it feels." And I go, "It's exactly how it feels." So there's that connection that they know that I know how they feel, And I suppose going through college and doing a lot of my own self-exploration and all that sort of stuff, I started the practice of staying present. So I live in the present. I live in the present moment only. I'm always in the now, which is a wonderful, wonderful place to live, lads. It's absolutely amazing place. As I say to people, I do a lot of things in life, but there's 16 hours in a day. There's 8 hours sleep and there's 16 hours in a day. You get a lot done in 16 hours when you're in the moment. You're not doom scrolling, you're not doing other things. So for my practice, when a client first comes in, we start talking about how their world. First question I'll ask them, what's your world like now? Tell me what's going on for you now. Tell me explain to me a little bit about that. So we do a few sessions and we talk a lot about now. And sometimes they might actually say, "But I'm here about this." No, we'll get to that. I just want to know now. So it's all about strengthening them into the now, feeling proud about who they are now. Looking at the patterns of how patterns from the past are controlling the present, but it's all from the present tense. Everything that we look at is from the present tense. If we have to go into the trauma, we look at the trauma from the place of strength, which is who you are now. You are a strong individual now. It's about giving you back the power in the now, the alignment, aligning with you in the now and seeing that strength. So when we go into the traumas, we look at the trauma, we see how the patterns within that trauma affected you, how those patterns, you can see how those patterns affected your life, like dominoes, how they affected your life, decisions that you made, like decisions for me as a bully, as bullies that I was worried constantly about things, how I can actually see, I remember the film in the 80s, The Sliding Doors, I know Gwyneth Paltrow.
Oh yes, I haven't seen it, but
it's about
that one decision.
Yeah, exactly, how those decisions make us. So it's looking at how the patterns of that trauma affected you. And one of the big things that people get out of that is that they can see that that's not who they are. It's the trauma that has actually created that who they are. That's not who they are. So sometimes I ask, who would you be if you didn't have that traumatic event? And it's allowing that space to disappear. So you're becoming the observer, you're becoming aware of the trauma, but not letting the trauma affect you. And the really powerful part about doing that is that most traditional therapy goes, tell me about your trauma, go through it, relive it. For most clients, we don't even have to relive it. We talk about the event, we don't get into it. Gabor Mate talks about, you're re-traumatizing every time you go into it.
If our listener is like, "Oh, who's Gabor Mate?" Would you share?
Oh yeah, Gabor Mate is probably my inspiration. I met him, I had the privilege of meeting him in UCC. I think that was in 2020. That was 2020, yeah. He came to UCC, so he's a trauma-informed therapist. He would have, he came from World War II, from the concentration camps, so a lot of the stuff that he understands around trauma and stuff like that, being Hungarian, it is quite huge. And so he talks an awful lot about there is traumas, we know there's traumas, everyone has a trauma. I remember one of the things that he said at the talk was that he's a world-renowned doctor and the whole lot, and he said that when his children turned 21, he told them, here's a lifetime of therapy because I more than likely missed you all. So if he did that just proved that there's something that happens and we don't know what it is. It's no one's fault.
It's part of the human experience.
It's part of the human experience.
We don't get away with it.
It's what creates us and what makes us so.
Us.
So Gabor Mate talks about the fact that the trauma does exist. You do have to look at the trauma, but the more traditional therapy, you go back into it. You delve into it, and then you come to the next session and you delve into it again. So every time you're reliving it. You shouldn't have to relive that trauma. You already lived it. For some people, when I talk about trauma, folks, I know that some people here might think of the Besbury babies or something like that as a trauma. Yes, there are people who have that trauma. But for me, the trauma was the bullying. So for some people, the trauma is actually quite small. A best explanation I give is if you've had twin boys and mammy.
Okay. So we're going to go.
Okay.
I love what you're sharing with the No, you're not. You're on track. I love what you're sharing, but we're going to take a little pause for a quick break.
Okay.
And
Great.
when we come back, I'd love for you to speak more into that.
Yeah, great.
Welcome back. Before we went to the break, there we were talking about trauma, and you.
So I was just giving an explanation, around the fact that, if you're a mother and you've got two children, and they're twin children, and they've done something bold. You give out to both of them. One of them says to themselves in their head, they goes, okay, Mom is dead right, she's dead right, that's fine. The other one thinks, oh, you're so mean, you're so nasty, you shouldn't do things. The person who thinks that has a trauma because they have guilt and shame for doing that. So sometimes the trauma can be quite small and it's nobody's fault. It's probably the message I was trying to get across about that, that it's not as big as we think it is. So that's probably the key to it, and that's probably what Gabor Mate has written numerous books about that.
Brilliant. Thank you. And you do incredible work, so you're working with people one-to-one, you do a lot of different events, and you also are involved in Youghal Talks. You're the founder of Youghal Talks. I'm curious to know, with the conversations and the events that you've ran in the past with that, has any event or story really stood out where you've seen such a change in either a person or a community, part of your community, through the events that you've run?
Well, I suppose I would have been one of the founders of Youghal Talks, but it's now a group, it's a committee, and actually we're all even and we all talk and we explore and get different things up and running. And I suppose the concept of Youghal Talks came about where we had a string of suicides in Youghal, and we wanted to get people talking. So the whole concept of Youghal Talks is to raise the conversation, get people talking, get people comfortable in talking about their mental health, and knowing that there is a safe place that they can actually go, or safe people to talk to. So they kind of know everybody, most people in Youghal knows who's involved with Youghal Talks, so you can kind of, people might randomly come up to you and actually ask. So the different talks that we've had, we had Colin Power on. I don't know if you've come across Colin Power. He's an amazing speaker, but he talked a lot about food and about the link.
He's a nutritionist.
He's a nutritionist,
yeah.
So he talked a
My
lot
friend
about.
did the Camino with him.
Okay, yeah. So he was quite inspirational the first time he came out. He had so much energy.
Yep.
He's just bouncing like with energy. He's absolute. But he's a product of what he is. Same as I'm a product of what I am. When I talk about therapy, I live this life. So he's the same. Like, so I found him very inspirational. Especially, he did a lot of talk about the link between food and mental health. And he was probably one of those ones that I had a kind of a bit of a light bulb moment, and I was like, oh right, okay, I never really thought about that. So since then I've kind of looked an awful lot into the link between food and our mental health, what food we're consuming, how that affects us. So he probably would have been big inspiration. But Youghal Talks is an amazing event. We have the Wellfest on the middle of, I think, the second week in August every year. First year we had about 2,500-3,000 people at it. This year we had about the same number, and it's just volunteers setting it up, just thinking about it. It's no council, no nothing. We just do it on our own, And obviously as well, I set up Youghal Community Market in Youghal as well. So that's kind of a food artisan market, and the concept behind that was that I wanted a place for people to go and talk, and that's what a community market is about. So that it gets part of the Wellfest as well. Absolutely amazing. Again, it's what I say. 16 hours in a day, I can do all that,
Fantastic. You're some man for one man by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. If we had a listener now listening at the moment and they were in really chronic anxiety, or we had somebody listening and maybe one of their family members or their partner has a lot of anxiety, are there any tips, real life easy tips or things that you can share that can help them begin their own journey of easing and working through anxiety?
Well, one of the first things I talk about when you come in, first of all, anxiety has become a big buzzword. It's become, everybody's talking about it. So when you actually say you're anxious and you're struggling with anxiety, feelings are key to everything. And one of the things I actually say is, if the word anxiety didn't exist, how do you feel? So that's about getting into those deeper feelings. So you might not start noticing that you're scared, you might be annoyed, you might be frustrated, you might have fear. So it's just about identifying the actual feeling that's actually going on, and actually saying to yourself, okay, what am I scared of? What am I annoyed at? What am I frustrated at? Rather than saying, what am I anxious at? So it's about getting into those deeper feelings. And I mean, they're just the basic feelings. You know, I mean, there are over 3,000 different feelings that we have in our body. So it's about getting into those feelings. Now, I understand that with most people with anxiety, they feel that they don't want to get into their feelings. So, I mean, it's about becoming aware of your breath, becoming aware of the now, and bringing everything back to the now. One of the other tips I talk about is becoming aware of the voice that's in your head, because the voice that's in your head that's saying negative things is not your voice. It's the bully, it's your father, it's the uncle, it's the aunt. It's somebody else that identifies that, because your voice inside in your head is always going to say something positive. It's always going to say that absolutely brilliant, Shane, you're brilliant, you're not, you're doing fantastic stuff.
Would that usually be the quieter voice?
That's most people don't hear it.
Yeah.
It's usually for me. It was in the background and it was going, Shane, you're brilliant, you're fabulous, you're fantastic. But I couldn't hear it because it was being drowned out by the bully's voices constantly over and over again. So becoming aware that your voice in your head will always say something positive is huge. And most people can identify it. And if you can't identify who owns the voice, what I usually do is give it to Mickey Mouse or give it to Homer Simpson. Give it to an annoying voice so that you can kind of start doing it. So it's about changing that narrative, changing those negative stories that are coming around in your head. But definitely everything is bringing it back to the breath. You know, one of the other things I talk about is putting elastic band on your wrist and flicking the elastic band. So it's everything about bringing it into the now. Putting cold water on your wrists, if anyone's actually in anxiety at the moment. Another big one I came across recently with panic attacks was bite on a lemon. Because when you're in a panic attack, people always talk, oh, breathing exercise, like you don't have time for some of that. So actually biting a lemon actually changes the neural pathways, changes everything like that. So it's about, everything is about bringing it into the now. You have to bring everything into the now. Anxiety is worrying about the future, depression is worrying about the past. And that is what we need to break. That is the 100th thing we need to break. But everything is about unexpressed feelings and emotions. Anxiety is unexpressed feelings and emotions. How many times in the past you were not allowed to actually express yourself for whatever reason? You have to learn how to express our feelings and emotions. But it's not as simple as that. So many people in society don't know their feelings and emotions. They don't know what exactly is going on for them. And a feeling is how we feel it in our body. An emotion is the story we place to it. So understanding even that concept, that the emotion that you're attaching to the feeling is wrong. So I feel people need to be educated on how they're feeling, what feelings they're actually going on in their body, so that they can actually learn how to express themselves properly. Because they don't know how to articulate their words. They don't know how, that this is anger. Jeez, I feel anger, I didn't know that. Anger is kind of an obvious one. But I feel sad, I didn't know that. I feel disgusted, I feel shame, I feel whatever is coming up. We don't know how what that feeling is attaching to it. And it's been so, it's not just, these days it's not just childhood, it's social media, it's so many other ways people are not learning the right way to feel their feelings. Emotional intelligence,
yeah,
pure emotional intelligence.
Some people would have the privilege of coming into a family that would maybe be quite emotionally aware and intelligent and have that growing up. But a lot of us, we don't get that.
Yeah.
And then we're going along in society fumbling, not really knowing what's going on, and then having to suppress things, you know. So yeah, I can definitely understand why people struggle with their emotions and their feelings.
But I mean, most of my sessions are involved with teaching people how to feel their feelings and emotions, how to express them in the correct way.
And I think people are scared as well, that especially if they're used to suppressing emotions for so long, there's almost this terror, like what if I actually feel this, it'll overwhelm me and I'll never be able to come out of it, which isn't true.
But I mean, that's what anxiety is. They're overwhelmed, they're overstimulated by their feelings and emotions. They're completely, I mean, I now know it. If I could have expressed how I felt, if I had been able to express to my parents about what was going on with bullying and all that, and if I had expressed to people about my worries and stresses, I wouldn't be where I am now. But that's this sliding door that I'm on. I'm very, very happy with the direction that I've gone in my life, you know.
Yes. And I could go on a total tangent, you know, talking about emotions and feelings and stuff like that, because there's a big area to explore there. In terms of people then, so if there's somebody listening, because I know myself when I speak to people, a lot of people are like, oh, I'd love to change, but I'm too old. and you changed at 40, you know, so if somebody was listening and they're like, I'm too old to change, what would you say to that person?
Well, first of all, my oldest client I've ever had with me was 87 years of age.
87.
And she changed her life.
Mm.
She changed her life at 87 years of age. She went on, in a choir, the whole lot. She absolutely changed her life at 87 years of age. So it's never too late to change your life. Because when you think about a year, 365 days is a long time. So, I mean, if you change within this year, you know, even if you change now, you still have time to change before Christmas. I mean, that's what the present tense therapy is all about. It's a lot faster. You know, traditionally most clients, you know, I don't have long-term clients, anyone longer than a year. Most clients aren't with me for longer than a year, but some clients have come to me and they've actually been sorted after 4 or 5 sessions. So it's not a lifetime. Yes, I'm constantly changing, I'm constantly evolving, I'm constantly working on myself. But to actually, I feel that I'd like to be the inspiration to help people to change. I went back to college at 40, scared out of my head going into college. And who I am now, this very moment at 54 years of age, who I am now is way different to who I was at 53.
If you could go, so where you are now to the man that you were 20 years ago, what would you say to the man 20 years ago?
I don't think I changed much, to be honest with you. I know I've had this debate, but I wouldn't be the man I am now. I wouldn't be the therapist I am now if I haven't gone through everything that I have gone through before.
If you had, like, say, a word of wisdom or
the word of wisdom was it's not as bad as you think it is.
It's not as bad as you think it is.
It's not. It is. There's no way it is anything that you're imagining in your head that it is. It's not. Just be free. Just get out, live life. Don't care what other people think of you. Just have fun. You know, one thing about being a therapist is my worry and fear about what other people were thinking of me. I now know, having worked with over 1,000 clients, that most people don't have time to think the things that you think they're going to think about you. They're too busy in their own heads worrying about their own things, you know.
And even if they do have a thought, it's so fleeting, and then it's on to the next.
Exactly. They don't have time. Their head is so busy.
Yeah.
I mean, how busy my mind is, how I thought that anybody else is going to be like that. So the message would be, just live your life. Stop worrying about other people and just have fun. Have laughter. Have joy. Jump up and down. Enjoy the sunshine. Do whatever you want to do, and stop worrying what everyone else wants to think about. You know. That's what I'd say to myself. Absolutely, just be free. Because my life is so free now.
Yeah, fabulous. If there's someone listening in and they're like, I really would like to connect with Shane and to work with him, he sounds like somebody that's aligned with me, how can people reach out and get in contact with you?
Okay, so I do one-on-one online. I also have a practice in Cork City on Bridge Street. I also in Youghal. So if anyone wants to get in contact with me, my website is counsellingexperts.ie and my email address is smurphycounselling@gmail.com, and they can find me as Anxiety Expert on Instagram and Anxiety Expert on TikTok. So I'm new on TikTok, folks. I'm only there 3 weeks now, so don't judge me.
Well done. Oh, you Shane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's how they get in contact with me, like, you know.
Brilliant. Do you want to do a quick shout out to anyone?
Oh yeah, sorry folks. Now this only just came into me there, just as I was coming in. So one of my colleagues in Youghal Talks, Anya Martin, her mum's birthday was last Thursday. Her name is Ka Martin, and everybody will know her because she's the president of an appearship at Youghal. So there you go. Big shout out to Ka. So there you go. And also thank you to all my friends and family and my partner and everybody that has supported me in everything that I've done over the last number of years.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Shane. It's been a great pleasure to have you on the show and chat with you.
Yeah.
That brings us to the end of the show. I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day. Until next time, be well, Deborah.